Okay, right, so welcome back. The second webinar of this course. This is the middle one, and we've got one more. Normally that would be on a Friday, but because it's bank holiday, we're going to have it on the Monday. So reflecting back on the first session, if anyone wants to share anything or just to check in, so we can kind of ground ourselves in the session that we're going to be doing today. If anyone's got any feedback, any comments, any questions, anything they want to say, we'll just take a couple of minutes. We'll just take a little pause. And if there's anything you want to say, just wave and come in.
I feel I should say something as a newcomer to the group.
Okay, go ahead. Hi, Jess.
I think, yeah, from the outside, I'm inside the group now, but from watching it, I was really impressed by how open people were. And wherever I go and whoever I talk to, we always sort of say, oh, there's a bit of a stigma around mental health and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But actually, from the get-go in this group, people were really brave and able to say, yeah, I'm affected by it myself, or I've had someone in my family who's affected by it, and were really open and honest about their roles. And there's a little joke about, I think, people saying, I'm really jealous about you and you're doing this and you're doing that. And I just thought it was a really safe, open space, really. And it sort of set the tone for, I think, what's going to be a really great course.
Great, thanks, Jess. Is there anything you wanted to say of that kind of context, I guess? Sorry, I don't know what the word, I can't think of the word, but is there anything you wanted to share in that similar way?
So as to why I'm here and what I want from the course type thing. Yeah. So I realised I didn't do that on Monday. And well, my name's Jess. I'm an HR advisor based in Bournemouth. I'm currently on furlough, which has given me the gift of time, really, to focus on sort of my own training and my own development. And I just really feel coming out of this is there's going to be a huge focus on mental health, which is great for the HR profession, because it's something I think I've always tried to be sort of putting to the forefront, but perhaps haven't been listened to so much as a group of people or whatever. But I would really like to have the confidence to deal with mental health conditions in the workplace and in my personal life. And to give you a bit of an insight, I work for a housing association, so it houses homeless people who have all sorts of mental health conditions right across the spectrum, really. And the colleagues that work with us, they also have had really difficult backgrounds and again have all sorts of mental health conditions across the spectrum, and are often put into really difficult scenarios where they might, for instance, find a resident who's committed suicide, and they might not be prepared for that at all, but they walk into a bedroom one day and that's what they find, or someone who's badly self-harmed. And I think it would be really important for our company to have somebody who's a little bit more equipped, perhaps, to be able to help and sort of signpost people to get further help, really. As all part of the greater mental health wellbeing strategy, really. So that's what I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome, Jess. That's really good. The course, I think I said this on Monday. The course touches on the responsibility of the workplace to hold the first aider for mental health, and making sure that the policies and processes around supporting that role are good and are supportive, and also the responsibilities for the first aider to kind of push back a bit and to ask for things that they need, like as a dialogue will change cultures. But it sounds like if you're on the course, you're way ahead of most companies. So welcome. Okay, so we're going to go on to module 6 today. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to say? No? Okay, so we're going to go on to module 6. So what the webinars, like I said on Monday, what the webinars are going to do is support the practical elements of your learning. Everything you have in terms of informative content, you have to do in your own time. You can take up to 5 weeks to do it, and then you book in a Zoom assessment with one of us. Ben does most of them, but it could be either one of us, and that will be where you are assessed in terms of competency. We're actually, I should just say, we're on lockdown in a house that is over on the back of a tube station, and we never factored that in because we never realised we'd be locked down here. So I'm so sorry, close the windows, but if you hear it go past, just know life is carrying on and we're not alone and the world is carrying on. But when we realised, we were just like, we need a challenge, we need another challenge. So I'm sorry, but it kind of blends into the background. So module 6, we're going to split the screen in a sec, and this is about the first aid action plan for mental health. You might have come across it, not yet, is that okay? Yeah, you might have come across it if you've been through the learning materials, but this is like the practical application that defines the role of first aider for mental health. So like a physical first aider, because we kind of often make the parallel to help people understand what this role actually is, you would have Dr. ABC. So you'd have your looking for danger, you check for a response, you do the airway, the breathing, the circulation. That would be, this is comparable in some ways to that. And this acronym we use is CARE. And we cover this in this module, and I'd like to guide you through this module. And then if we have time, we definitely do lots of this in Monday's webinar, which will be the practical element. So Ben and I, in this webinar, will demonstrate some of the scenarios that you might encounter within this role. And it will also help to demonstrate what will be expected of you in the assessment as well. You'll get a scenario in the assessment and you will be the first aider and you will kind of talk us through this action plan. Okay, so like before, any questions, just wave, stop me, or send us a message if I haven't seen you. But we'll go through the PowerPoint slides, then we'll do and then we'll have some questions, then we'll do some scenarios for you to demonstrate the learning. And then if there's time, sometimes there isn't, and that will be okay. But on the extended webinar on Monday, we will put you into breakout rooms and you'll have an opportunity to practice on each other. Okay? So let's go. Thank you, Ben. Oh, what's that? I'm just going to go to the screen.
Everyone see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the acronym, which I've mentioned, is CARE. Now, there are lots of different reactions to CARE, the CARE prompts, but it's useful to have. So CARE, which is the first aid action plan for mental health, C stands for check for significant risk of suicide or harm. At the core of first aid, all first aid is about the preservation of life and making sure that the primary concern is to make sure that person isn't going to harm themselves. We don't use the word the phrase commit suicide anymore, and I know it's still very much in everyday language, but does anyone know why we don't say commit suicide anymore?
Sounds like you've sort of mentally committed to doing it. I don't know if it's the word commit that's
it was a crime.
It was.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was up
So you'd actually be
71.
in a situation. Yeah.
Sorry, Belinda, you're quite.
Go on, carry on, Ben.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Belinda. Sorry.
It was just your quiet.
Yeah. Up until 1971, it was illegal. It was illegal to take your own life. So we used to use the term commit suicide then, but obviously now that's different.
Yeah. So we say things like, it's just, I think, good to get into the habit. It's not a crime anymore. You can't commit suicide. In the past, you would, if you attempted suicide and failed, you could be, it was a criminal offence. Now we talk about attempting suicide, completing suicide, at risk of suicide. We use just different words, and it's just it really is worth making a note of that. So the first thing we do is check for significant risk of suicide or harm, and you can do that in different ways.
Sorry, just on that, I'm really interested as to why it's still used so commonly by people like counsellors who are trying to help other people. And I'm on a counselling course where I stood up there and said, you can't say it's not supposed to be said. And it's like the first time people have ever heard it, and I'm really shocked.
Yeah, I can't explain it.
I just think it's so ingrained language that, I mean, that's the only kind of explanation I can give for that. It's so ingrained in English language, commit suicide.
I've got lots of thoughts on it, and I'm definitely not an authority at all. And I have thought this myself, Belinda, and I wonder if it's because, particularly in the professions where we deal with people in mental health settings or psychotherapeutically, it's the ultimate concern that we have. We, of course, we have lots of processing concerns and we give our attention to our work, but there is something quite frightening, I think, being held in that profession around this topic. And there's something about committing something that adds a weightiness to it. Is just what I've come up with. I don't know if that's right. I think there's an unconscious fear about it. So to commit suicide sounds really bad, and we must take that very seriously. Completing suicide almost feels like you've completed something, potentially, to some people. Although, yeah, I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know why some people say and some people don't. But that's just, honestly, just what I thought.
Thank you.
Okay, so A is apply non-judgmental communication skills. Does anyone have anything they want to comment about that? Maybe reflecting on your listening on Monday. And I'm curious about how judgment-free everyone was. I know someone's dying to say something. I can feel it. Go ahead, Katie.
I don't think, at least from my own perspective, that there was any judgments on Monday. But I think that it can be very difficult. Like, for example, some of the things, they certainly weren't judgments, but, I shared some personal stuff and other people shared personal things. And I think that even when you're listening completely and your heart is really, really open and you're acting from a, the best possible place you can be, just your, micro movements, just someone who's very, very sensitive, always really nervous about sharing or thinking, oh God, I shouldn't have shared that. Like, it's not just the communication or the words that we do or don't say. It's, what angle we hold our body at. Do we look at them in the eyes? Do we, because not everyone's comfortable with eye contact a lot of the time. So there's just so many other things that come into play with really sensitive conversations that I think that is like as important as applying the communication skills, like those kind of verbal ones that we think of, but all those other cues that could possibly be, a little bit triggering for someone who's sharing something very, very private or stressful or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's a great contribution. Thank you very much, Katie. I wonder how judgment-free us human beings are. Like, truly, I wonder how, I don't know, my career's been about recognising all the millions of judgments I make about people and, why I think that and how it relates to things. So I think the thing I want to say about that is, don't give yourself a hard time for being judgmental. That a judgment can be, that feels frightening, or, oh, that I don't like that, or, oh, that was really against my own beliefs. not. Hi, Nikita.
Hi, Nikita.
Hey, welcome.
Sorry.
Hi, we're going through module 6.
Brilliant, thank you.
No worries. We'll send you a copy of it as well. So anything you've missed, you can catch up on. But welcome. We're just on the CARE acronym, which is about the first aid action plan, a bit like Dr. ABC for physical first aid, just to kind of give you a quick catch up. So yeah, I'd say don't worry about the fact that you will have some judgments, but it's about how you receive that person in the most kind of non-judgmental way. And I mean, we can go into like years of study around what judgments are, but I think in the spirit in which it's offered, I think in the most basic form, just accepting somebody and being there to listen to what they have to say.
I mean, you know, we're judgmental by human nature, but it's creating a non-judgmental kind of listening space.
Yeah, I'm even judging the application of non-judgment. So there we go. Reassure and provide information. And we'll cover what kind of information, but that's about being supportive and understanding. And E is encourage professional support and self-help strategies, which we'll demonstrate in our scenarios that we're going to offer you. Okay. You guys are on 2 screens now, so if you want to talk, I might not be able to see you, so just turn your mic off and just stop me. Okay. So this is the C part, which is check for significant risk of suicide or harm. So the first step in helping someone who's suffering from a mental health problem is to look for signs of significant distress, including suicidal thoughts and emotions. Indicators of suicide thoughts may include telling you that they want to end their life, threatening to hurt or kill themselves, speaking or writing about death, dying or suicide, feelings of hopelessness and saying negative things about themselves, withdrawing from family, friends and society, apparent mood swings and acting recklessly, becoming very anxious, irritable and stressed, an increase in the use of alcohol and drugs. Did anyone have any additions that they can think of that might suggest that someone was at risk of significant, that might suggest that they are at risk or of risk of suicide or harm?
No, I don't know why, but I'm sort of thinking about Caroline Flack now and how much of a shock that was. I didn't see it coming at all. Someone I thought that was very happy and, you know, was absolutely fine, but actually perhaps it's, you know, being hugely in the spotlight could be another factor.
Yeah, there's a phenomenon when people have decided that they're going to end their lives, when they become very peaceful or very upbeat, and that I don't know if it actually has a name, but you might have had a few concerns about them, or they might have been declining, and then all of a sudden they just seem brilliant for like an unexpected reason. Can be quite subtle.
It's like a sense of euphoria from when someone's decision that they're going to take their own life, then it's just like the huge weight is lifted. And so, you know, in the days immediately before, you know, the act, then they'll be very happy, euphorious.
It's an interesting concept, I guess, like just by being in the spotlight is a precursor, the suggestion that it might be a precursor to making you more at risk. It's quite an interesting one. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
Or the negative press that maybe comes from being in the spotlight, which is sort of like bullying and harassment type behaviour.
Yeah, and I think that happens on micro levels as well. People have different thresholds for what they think is acceptable and what it's usually a bit. And in the earlier modules, we look at, when you go through the learning materials, if you haven't already, we talk about that there's like a continuum of mental health, and some people who have diagnosed mental health problems have a much better quality of life than people that don't. It's like a revolving continuum. So it's worth checking out those slides when putting this into context. Thanks. Anyone else got anything they'd like to say about this?
Is it all right if I just pip in for a minute?
Yeah, of course.
It's quite interesting looking at some of these, because obviously I predominantly work with teenagers, and some of these are just traits of being teenagers, becoming very anxious, irritable and stressed teenagers. I get told a lot that they want to end their lives, and a lot of the time it is just a little bit of, I actually just want to have a conversation, and that I'm not, that isn't something that they would seriously consider. But there is a little bit of a theme that is, I'll use my words carefully, quite fashionable to do certain things through certain times. So it's kind of plateaued a little bit now, but self-harm was a phase at one point, and they were doing it to say, look at my arm, look what I've got going on here. So it's quite interesting that some of these bullet points are also quite traits of teenagers feeling hopelessness. I'm in exam season now, that would be the whole of my year 11. So it's kind of finding that scale for me where my, spider sense should go up a little bit.
Yeah. This is why the first aider for mental health role is really specific and must sit inside of organisations and institutions with all of their other guidance, safeguarding policies. It's one role that can furnish a professional, whoever is undertaking the role officially, which can then contribute to the overall ethos of wherever you are. Yeah, exactly. And your other training would support how you might deal with somebody, a young person particularly, because this is kind of much more, well, I say it's for adults, but in the face-to-face, this is for 16 plus, this training. So in a face-to-face setting, our level 1 and level 2 courses, which are in awareness mental health courses, which we do for everyone, but the youngest is 14. And I think there is something, when we've done a little bit of work in schools, there is something about being responsible with the language that you're using and what it really means. And I think genuinely, the young adults that we talk to about this, they don't realise what they're saying and what it really means. And when they do, there's sort of almost like a light bulb moment. Even adults, when we talk about the language people use around mental health, it's usually very discriminatory. It's usually quite sensationalized. It isn't used in kind of a delicate way of understanding. It's often quite used as a weapon, particularly around young people.
There's definitely a misuse of the terms, because anxiety and depression, again, and I can only speak for sort of my involvement in the job that I do, a lot of kids will say, well, I'm depressed. And then when you sit with them and you pick at it, they're just sad that day. But instantly that goes to the depression. If they've got butterflies in their stomach, they've instantly gone to the highest level anxiety, and they say, well, I'm anxious. And then you sit with them, you make them a cup of tea, you pick at it a little bit, and you're like, you're just a little bit nervous about a test that's coming up, and that is perfectly normal. So I think there's a misuse in teenagers that we come across that needs unpicking before we can even start to get into sort of the deeper.
And what I would also say is there may be something in your school that is missing for them. There's something that perhaps they need, maybe around heightened anxiety times, around exams, workshops, maybe an opportunity to like talk about their feelings, so it doesn't then get maybe misused. But they might, when they're saying it, they might genuinely feel depressed.
Yeah.
Like the other thing, it's quite passionate, but you're passionate being a teenager, and you feel everything much more strongly, and usually for a shorter amount of time. So it's quite, and then what we want to avoid is schools and institutions to just have a sense that they're being dramatic, because that's then what happens as well. So it's like, I'm sure they're fine, but actually, if there is a culture of young people looking out for each other and really understanding what mental health conditions are, like what you're going through here, they can't sort of look after each other. So, and I say all organisations actually, it's not just schools, it's everywhere. If we don't sort of understand at the most basic level what we're dealing with and what it means and what we can do, we're all kind of lost. Is my view. I'm obviously particularly passionate about it because this is what we do, but it kind of makes sense to me. Thanks, Serena. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if I could add something.
Yeah, of course.
To add to adding the response to Serena, because, well, we, as a family doctor, we have scores to assess the risk of suicide, and even having ways to assess risk, it's really very difficult to know. Even well, with teenagers, it would be even more difficult because of this dramatic way of speaking and expressing themselves, and it could be just to catch your attention, or just to call your attention on them. But even for someone not a teenager, it's quite difficult to assess, to really assess the risk of suicide. So it's better to take it very serious when someone talks about suicide or about death. But one hint that we use, just to tell it to Serena, is if the person has a plan. So one thing is talking about death or suicide, and another thing is saying how I will do it, or if there is really a plan. That's a sign of danger. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's such a big ask for the role of first aider for mental health, and the relationships that you're going to have with the people in your work or in your school, again, and your judgment around it. And then all the other processes, the safeguarding, the child protection processes all come into play. But what we don't want is a young person or anyone who does say something dramatically, but actually they're really quite serious. And it's that constant interplay and having checks and balances and measures and relationships that allow you to have that person approach to the role. So yeah, just as if someone had a bump on the head, you wouldn't know if they'd had a brain bleed in a similar way. It could be far more serious. So we just, we manage the risk, and it should be guided with your organisational policies. It just should. It keeps you safe. Okay, so when someone is in immediate danger to themselves and others, or they are actively suicidal, dial 999 for an ambulance or go directly to the nearest A&E department. That will of course be different if you live in a different part of the world, but because this is a UK-based qualification, that is what you do. If you genuinely believe that someone if you are worried that when they leave your presence, they're not going to be able to look after themselves properly, you have to phone for an ambulance. And that's again where the policies in which you operate in have to have a plan for you. For non-life threatening emergencies, we're also going to role play that as well. For non-life threatening emergencies, there are a number of options available to support the person, or for the person to seek the support themselves. We cover that in the role play. This includes, but not limited to, a trusted friend or family member. I think that's quite easy to forget, actually. But when we encourage, and we'll come through to encourage professional support, but this is also tied up in it. Quite often in practice, I will say, who can you talk to about this? Where's your, certainly as training to be, in the training that I've done, family structures and friendship and social networks are very important. So this is kind of like an inquiry into who might be available to them. Their GP, it's quite hit and miss with GPs around their understanding of mental health also, and how sensitive they'll be. But there are mechanisms to support people and their mental health through their GP. The Samaritans, who are always available, and you can email them if the person doesn't want to call, and the NHS, just to check in. Okay, so that's the care bit, the C bit, the check bit. I'm going to move on to the applied non-judgmental communication skills, but if anyone needs to ask anything related to any bit, just stop me. So applying non-judgmental communication skills, this is what it involves, and you'll see this again in what we demonstrate. Let the person tell you how they are feeling and listen to what they are saying with your full attention. Give them time and have patience. If they pause their response, wait a few seconds, as they may not have finished what they are trying to say. That's really important. If you're in a heightened situation, time doesn't feel the same. So what may seem like an eternity might actually only be a few extra seconds. Just really pause and give yourself permission not to have to do something. Maintain eye contact if that feels appropriate. Some people, particularly who may have a psychotic episode, may not feel safe to have eye contact. So maintain eye contact if the situation feels that's appropriate. Keep an open body position and be aware of your tone of voice when speaking. So this is non-judgmental communication skills, but use your judgment. If you're feeling threatened, you're not going to be able to have an open body posture, but it's worth checking in to see if you're able to do that, to make that person feel as safe as possible. Use open-ended questions to continue the discussion and avoid closed questions with yes or no answers. If you've got a notebook in front of you, could you just write down one closed question? If you're watching the recording of this, write down one closed question that will definitely most likely shut down the conversation. Okay, does anyone want to shout them out to me? Go on. Turn yourself off mute if you want and just tell me what it is. Okay. Tell me your closed questions.
Are you depressed?
Are you okay?
Are you okay? Yep, fine.
Yep.
Are you okay? I've got that as well.
Yeah, fine. Any others?
Are you anxious?
You anxious? No? Yeah, good one.
Do you want help?
No? Good one. Yeah, do you want help? Right, now write down an open-ended question. And notice, what I find really interesting, notice your body sensation from the writing down the first to writing down the second. Not everyone feels the difference, but I usually do. There's a sort of, yeah, you can tell me actually. It's really good to have these because when, you know, if you're in a sort of a heightened situation, it's good to have like a little few things you can pull out to talk about. Okay, so come on, anyone got an open-ended question?
How are you feeling?
Oh, thanks for asking. Yeah.
What can I do to help you?
Nothing.
How are you coping with things at the moment?
Oh, think about, that's a good one. Joanna, think about slightly, very doctor-like, so I totally understand, but just try and shift it a tiny bit. It's got good in its intention. Do you want to try?
Yeah, I will try.
Do you want me to help you? Say it again?
Oh, me already?
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Or how can I help you?
Nothing.
Okay. Or I don't know. In which way do you think I could help you right now? No.
I don't need your help. Has anyone got any ideas?
Maybe something like, what do you think could help?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Tell me how you've been feeling. Or explain to me.
What's going on? What's going on? What's happening? The best one I ever use, I don't know about you, Belinda, but the best one that I use is what's happening? What's happening?
It's quite informal, isn't it? It's quite relaxed and makes people feel at ease.
Yeah. Yeah. And Joanna, a doctor's job is to get to the bottom of it in a really, a medical issue in a very quick way. You usually don't have long with your patients. So, of course, you're going to ask direct questions. But in a kind of really heightened situation, or a situation where someone is particularly vulnerable, and kind of gentle, open, what's going on? How are you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And you'll probably get the answer to what you wanted from your first question, but with a greater richness of emotion.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Has anyone got any open questions?
I've got, what do you think is the worst thing that could happen if you told someone?
Who said that? Who was that?
Me, Serena.
Oh, Serena. Hi, Serena. Sorry, I've got to scroll through. Say that again.
What do you think the worst thing that could happen is if you tell me?
I think the worst thing is what that's like is somebody that you are already in a relationship with. That sounds like something you might say to someone who you've got a good sense of how they might react to it.
Maybe, yeah. I'm just thinking about what I would use at work.
So you're trying to.
How can I be here for you? How can I be here to support you?
Yeah. I wouldn't give the person too much responsibility to say what they need from you. Because I think so many things, when you're distressed, remember you're called in at the point of crisis, or you may not be, but that's the intention of the role in many ways. So I truly believe that a open-ended question, which is gentle and it's a conversation without too much thinking, because I think people are in that vulnerable state, and I've been in that state. I'm sure most of us have been in that state. We don't know what we need or what a lot of the time until we kind of, I say calm down very respectfully, until we sort of, drop down into being more settled, and then maybe a more rational conversation can happen. Yeah. It's more difficult than you think, isn't it? It's when we demonstrate, I think you'll get it. It will consolidate your learning.
I'm having trouble with the sound. I'm hearing you, but not with some breaks. I don't know if it's only me or is everyone listening okay?
I've had a bit of delay.
Yes, and delay and sometimes some cuts.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, because you're right that most of the times we don't know what we need or what the other person can do for us. Anyway, I would like to say that it would not be my first question. I thought you were asking me just any open question, any at all. But of course it would not be just to start a conversation with someone that is distressed, asking what I could do for this person, because yes, first it would be like a way to assess how he's feeling in the moment, or yes, another question.
Sure, of course.
But you're right that most of the times we don't know what we need or what others could do for us.
Sure. And the role of the first aider for mental health is limited in ways, but it's really effective in lots of ways. Can I just ask everyone to put themselves on mute, please, unless you're speaking?
Yes.
Thank you.
Get
Thank you.
better.
Yeah. The boundary of a first aider for mental health is quite a specific one within the role, and it's very important that we teach you in a way that holds that specific role very clearly. And of course, when you go around the world, you'll be using all your skills. And there might be overlap and crossover. I'm going to check on you. Hear stuff. What? Ooh. Oh, that's better. Thank you. Okay. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Okay. What's that noise? Okay. Right. So this is the R bit, which is reassure and provide information. So let the person know that they have done the right thing in telling you, and reassure them that they will not feel this way forever. The number of people who have been in mental distress who have taken such heart in just being reassured that, you know, this will pass. You're feeling really bad at the moment. I can really hear that. I'm here with you. You'll move beyond this. You're going to start feeling better. It's okay. And in your way of doing that, however that feels right for you in the situation. Let the person know it's okay to talk about their feelings and reassure that you're there to listen, whatever they want to say or discuss. Did I say this? Let them know you care for them and remind them they are not alone. 1 in 4 adults experience similar problems each year of their lives. Show gratitude to the person and acknowledge the courage it has taken to talk. That is such a powerful communication. Do not make assumptions about their condition. Provide reassurance and information. Okay. We'll demonstrate all these. We'll demonstrate all these things to you in what we're going to do in a minute. Okay. So now we're on to E, which is encourage professional support. Encouraging someone to seek professional help can be difficult, as the person will need to make this decision themselves. There are several professional services available, and the choice will depend on what the person feels the most comfortable with. So these are some examples. The local GP could be the first point of call. Trained therapists and counsellors, charity organisations, certified peer support specialists. And what I would encourage you to do, and I might have mentioned this, is to start gathering. I don't think it will take you very long, but to gather a list or a little folder of different support services that may be local to where you're based. And that if you're part of an organisation, just this might be more relevant to, actually no, but anyone that's working as part of an organisation should definitely at the minimum have a notice board. I've been doing some work about managing mental health in the workplace, and to establish a culture requires a visible presence, and a really important one. It provides kind of an anchor to any kind of shifts in culture. Some sort of visual communication that gets updated regularly is really useful. Okay. Individuals can help themselves personally through self-help techniques and making simple changes to their lifestyle. Some people may find that self-help techniques are really helping them feel better without professional involvement, and that's really true. Some people do feel better if they can learn and take responsibility for doing these themselves. It's not always, and a lot of people do need support outside of that, but it is an option. However, it's important to know that recovering from mental illness can take time and dedication. Very often self-help techniques are used in conjunction with professional therapies, definitely. Guided self-help is where you work through a self-help workbook or computer course with the support of a therapist. You can get psychological therapies, including guided self-help, on the NHS, and you don't need a referral from a GP. So it might be worth just kind of getting up to speed on that. And it might be suitable for someone. And quite often these things are the first step, and people may then themselves just carry on. Okay, this is the last slide. Encourage self-help strategies. This is part of the assessment, so it is worth learning these. Being mentally healthy should be important to each and every one of us. Although there are many professional support strategies available, self-help can make a huge difference in helping someone manage and improve their mental health. Self-help advice can include being active and exercising regularly. I know my mental health improves dramatically when I do that. Getting enough sleep, maintaining a healthy diet, socializing and connecting with others, self-help books and resources, relaxation and mindfulness techniques, avoiding drugs and alcohol, peer support groups. So if we could go back to full screen, that's really the most teaching you get. You have all these slides available to you that you can work through. A lot of that information we're going to discuss in the professional conversation for the assessment at the end when you book that in. So it's worth making sure you have a really good understanding of it. And it's the fundamentals of your role that keep you safe, keep the person you're helping safe, and it's very much about the boundaries of what you're doing. Does anyone, we're going to show you a couple of role play examples, but does anyone have anything they'd like to say or any questions they'd like to ask? I can see you all now on one screen. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of role plays for you. And on Monday, when we come back together, you'll get an opportunity to do this together as well, to practice the role of a first aider for mental health, and also in preparation for the assessment, which during the assessment, I like to keep reminding you, we have that interplay between us, and you will be the first aider for mental health following this action plan, the care action plan. Okay, so scenario number one, I'm a teacher. I recently had some time off. I was suffering from stress. I've broken up with my girlfriend. I've been coming in consistently late, smelling of alcohol, and someone has also heard me vomiting in the toilets. Okay. We're going to play it, but looking at you if we can. So I just, we're going to do our best. So bear with. Let's see how it works. Usually all right, no? Yeah. Okay, go on. Okay. Do I? My brain went somewhere else, sorry. Hi Ben, what's going on? Hi Sarah. What's going on? I'm really down at the moment. I'm struggling. I'm not doing too well. You know, I had some time off recently, and since I've come back, I've just found it very difficult. I've found it difficult being at work, and I've started drinking, and I've started drinking quite a lot. Okay. I'm having real trouble at the moment. Has anything happened? Yeah, I broke up with my girlfriend a couple of months ago, and that hit me really hard. It's all snowballed from that, really. I'm really sorry to hear that. It sounds like a really difficult time for you at the moment. Yeah, I'm having a tough time at the moment. Okay. Is there anyone you've been talking to? Any support that you've been getting when you've been feeling this way? I haven't spoken to anyone. I could speak to my brother. Me and my brother have quite a good relationship. Okay. But I've yet to speak to anyone as of yet. I think I should start kind of reaching out to people. That sounds like a really good idea. I think we need support when things feel difficult. You will definitely. We hope you'll improve and you won't always feel this way. But I think getting some support is really important. It sounds like for you.
Mm. Yeah, I think that it's got really bad. I need to speak to someone.
Have you ever spoken to your GP about it?
I haven't actually. I haven't really thought about the GP, but I guess that would be my first step to sort of some more professional help.
Okay. There's a folder in my office that I've put together, and it's got different support services, and I think it's got some therapists in there and some alcohol support groups and people that can maybe help you. Would you like to pop down and have a look through it?
Yeah, I'd like to do that. That'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I'm the first aider for mental health, and one of the things I just need to ask: have you thought about hurting yourself?
No, I mean I've been pretty low, but I've not had any thoughts about hurting myself or taking my own life or anything like that.
Okay. No. All right. Thanks for telling me. I just wanted to make sure. Okay then. So when you go home this evening, do you think you could give your brother a call?
Yeah, I think I should do. I will do. Yeah, I'm going to give him a call.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to me. And if you need to come and see me, do you want to pop down and have a look at that folder?
Yeah, I will do. Thank you.
Okay. Any thoughts?
I thought the boundaries were really good that you had, and in some instances it's interesting because I think some of the questions I naturally wanted to ask a little bit more, like I suppose like things like, well, what's the hardest thing for you to deal with at the moment, but perhaps that's going too far by asking some of those questions. So you've got quite clear boundaries there, which were really good.
That's a really good point, Amy. The job of the first aider for mental health as we see it is to contain the situation. It's not new avenues of that actually sounds quite therapeutic, actually. That may be something to do or you're interested in, but it's about containing that situation, just as if you saw someone on the ground bleeding, worried about their kind of anything else in their body. You just want to make sure they don't bleed to death.
Yeah.
Similar. It's a very similar principle that we're containing, we're holding, we're asking gentle, open questions just to find out what's going on a bit. But it's not our job to kind of manage what's going on beyond the crisis point.
Yeah.
Well done. Thanks for asking that. Thanks for commenting on
that. I've got a question. So when I've done physical first aid in the workplace courses, one of the things you're taught to do when you first are with the person is to just explain that you are a first aider and what your name is. And so that's obviously more applicable in my workplace because you deal with up to 300 or 400 people, members of the public, every day. And you have a duty of care for them, as you do have a duty of care for also your fellow colleagues and staff. So I was just wondering, because you did say later on in the conversation, I'm a mental health first aider, but in the instance where you're maybe dealing with someone in your workplace that doesn't know who you are, then would that be a good thing to do in that case, is just explain who you are first, instead of being just a random person kind of coming up and asking them questions?
Really good question, and it's such a I was going to say it's a really good question, and it's such a good question. because it was that was such a good question. The honest answer is I don't know. So yeah, like in principle, yes, because otherwise it may seem very odd that you're this kind of nosy person that's, but I would say my personal view is judge it. I think, yeah, make it really clear if that feels like the right thing to do. When you see the next scenario, you may not want to do that because it might be extremely triggering. If someone's having a psychotic break and you say the word mental health, I work with a lady, I freelance sometimes, and I was in a community centre. I do a lot of work across communities and government, but mostly communities because I like it more. And there was a lady who had been sent by the church. We work in a crypt, and there was a lady that came down, and they thought she was really challenging. And she came to me, I was asked to speak to her, and it was really clear to me she was having, there was some very serious psychosis going on with her, and she will not accept that she has any form of mental health problem. And the minute you say it, that's it. She won't. She becomes extremely aggressive. So the answer is and the way that I've worked with her is kind of whilst getting statutory services to take her, because she won't admit she's got a mental illness. She won't engage with mental health services, but she had become so unwell. I'm the first aider for mental health, and I had to almost deny the fact that she had a mental illness. So I mean, that's just a whole other. So when we get trained in this, we get brought into all sorts of situations. We get all these sorts of opportunities that just come our way. And it's like, oh, you're the first aider. You can kind of deal with that. And it's like, well, not really. So then that question that you ask, I think in that situation, it's a brilliant thing to do. No, hi Ben. Do you want to say it to him, Miriam?
Yeah. Hi there. I'm Miriam, and I'm a mental health first aider, and I'm just here for you if you'd like to talk to me.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. Now that's lovely. Let's do this next scenario and then see what you think. And you may still think it's appropriate, but it'd be interesting to see what you think about this one. Okay.
I think, can I just add something? When you say and introduce yourself as a mental first, I'm the designated mental health aider, or the company's mental health first aider. As long as you say it as long as you're saying it with like genuine kind of concern, then it's absolutely fine. It's how you say it. When you spoke to me then, you generally seemed sort of concerned for my welfare, and that's the main thing, not actually sort of what you're saying, is how you're saying it.
Yeah, I think the tone is really important, even when you're dealing with someone that's just cut their finger or something, as I have done in the past, to someone having a cardiac arrest. So it's kind of the first thing you need to do is make them feel at ease with you being there almost, and that you kind of know what you're doing, so they feel safe with you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It also helps because there's also a tightrope we walk about confidentiality, but also making sure that people around you know that you're handling it. So it's like, you say you're the mental health first aider, that might be very appropriate if someone is in extreme distress and you're trying to deal with it. But in a more sort of intimate way that we might have just been, there was no need to bring attention to the situation because I wasn't going to call for help. I wasn't going to need the assistance of at that point, it could have escalated, but it didn't feel that way. So good questions. You asked good questions, Miriam. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Every question is a good question and I love hearing them. No pressure.
I just noticed with the CARE acronym, you can do that in any order, can't you? It's yeah.
It's the people that wrote this training course that we've become instructors for are, I think I might have said this, they're very military. They deal a lot with people from the military, ex-military personnel, and their first type of training was first aid, physical first aid, and all the kind of different like they do stuff around oxygen and pediatric first aid. So they've kind of added the mental health first aid alongside first aid, but we kind of felt that it needed a bit more flexibility in the way we deliver it. As long as we kind of keep the learning outcomes for it, we have some freedom to do that. So my answer to that would be yes.
Yeah, the check for risk of harm or suicide, I mean, would very rarely be the first thing that you do. I mean, that would be much further on in the conversation.
Yeah, and in physical first aid, you probably want to check that first thing.
Mm.
You know, so yeah, good question. Thank you. Next scenario.
Okay.
There's something that goes on when we do scenarios, because we always look, especially in lockdown, we look at each other a lot, and it sends me a little bit hysterical. I don't know why, but just let's do this. I think it's also the material, because this one is quite
So this scenario, I am again, I split up with my girlfriend a while back, but I've been spotted pacing up and down the corridor in the office, pacing up and down, muttering to myself, and really obviously in sort of quite severe distress.
Okay. Hi Ben, what's happening?
I'm not feeling good. I'm not in a good way at the moment. Not at all. No.
You're not in a good way?
No, I don't feel good.
Okay. Has anything happened?
Well, you know, a while back I split up with my girlfriend, and I'm having real trouble handling that. It's really affecting me at the moment.
Okay. That sounds really difficult.
Yeah, I'm having a tough time.
Yeah, okay. Have you spoken to anyone about this?
No, I'm not going to speak to anyone. Everyone I speak to, they're all out to get me. They don't know that they're all part of the same. It's them. Everyone's against me.
Who's out to get you?
Just everyone. They're there. They're all speaking about me. She got them to all speak about me, and they're all in my head talking about me, and it makes me feel really bad.
Okay, I can understand that would feel really bad. So you haven't spoken to anyone?
No, I don't want to speak to anyone.
Okay. Do you think that you would, St Thomas's Hospital?
I know St Thomas's, yeah.
Do you think you would come in if I got a cab? Would you come with me?
No, I don't want to go there. Everyone at St Thomas's is all the same. They're all in it together. They're all speaking about me. Okay. I don't want to go there.
All right. Okay. Ben, how are you feeling in yourself? Do you think you could? I don't know. I think I'm a bit concerned that you don't seem yourself today. I'm a bit worried you could harm yourself. Do you think that's something?
I've thought about it before.
You've thought about hurting yourself?
Yeah, I've thought about hurting myself, and just thought that there's no point in me being around, because it kind of made me feel worthless.
Made you feel okay. Then will you wait here for me? I'm just going to ask Dave to come and sit with you, and I'll be back in a minute. But would you wait here with him just for a few minutes?
Yeah, I'll sit with Dave.
And I'm going to come back and talk to you again, right? But I want you to stay here, okay?
I will do.
Right. Okay, what am I going to do now?
999.
Yeah, I think so. I think what I would do is, I would follow the process, because I would understand what the policy was for this, but I'd probably go and talk to my line manager or somebody, maybe the CEO or somebody in authority. I'd make sure, because Ben's quite calm, but he's clearly not rational. He's not. I would feel very worried if he left this situation about him being able to look after himself. He seems really vulnerable. I think he could be taken advantage of. It could escalate. All sorts of things could happen. So I was quite sure very early on that I was concerned. He's hinted that he might want to harm himself. He's not really making much sense. He seems quite psychotic in many ways, or he's experiencing symptoms of psychosis, rather. Forgive me, that's the right expression. So what I've done is I'm going to get a colleague to come and sit with him, who I know he's got a good relationship with, and I'm going to go and very quickly consult with someone more senior. We'll make the decision together, And while the ambulance, I would speak to somebody in the ambulance when I phoned 999, and I would explain to them what the situation was. I'm very worried. Unfortunately, what might happen is the police might come as well as the ambulance. So what I'm now thinking about is how to prepare Ben as best I can for that. And it can feel quite dramatic and quite frightening, but I can be the consistent person. I don't know how he's going to react. When the emergency services arrive, they may be able to get him to, I don't know, they may be able to encourage him just to, get in the ambulance, but quite often people get put into police cars sometimes. It just depends what's going on and who's available. And I would be thinking about preparing him and just being available during that time. Gosh, it's got very serious, hasn't it? It might.
I was going to say, why do the police have to come along with the ambulance?
Sometimes they do. So certainly if someone is attempting suicide, the police come and quite often will handcuff that person and restrain them, because their job is to preserve the life of that person at all costs. If they're available, I don't know why they come is the honest answer. Sometimes they do, quite often they do. Because I think there's quite often, if someone is being forced to go to hospital, they'll resist. But if we're worried that they're going to attempt to kill themselves, they have to go. We haven't got a better way of doing it here. I would much rather that the police come and he is admitted to hospital against his will because he can't rationalise properly, than for him to die. He will improve. I haven't worked with anyone that when they're medicated or engage in some really good therapy, I don't know anyone that hasn't improved. Yeah, I'm a bit worried about him now. yeah. There was a genuine worry about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on in terms of the police in relation to personal experience where we've had to call services for my sister, and the police were actually really incredible and they weren't intimidating in any way. So I think if I were in a situation with a stranger, I'd probably just really reiterate the fact that the police are not on their way to, get them and they're not in trouble, that they're just another sense of support at this moment in time to make sure that they don't hurt themselves. And I think it's certainly really amazing about the UK in comparison to where I come from. In South Africa, we are absolutely terrified of the police force. But at the police, at almost most police stations, they've also got like people that are trained in the police force to deal with mental health. So they have got policemen that are mental health first aid equipped. And I remember when my sister had to be taken to the police station, she underwent a psychiatric assessment by a clinical psychiatrist who attended to her while she had to be restrained and sort of locked up. And also, which is really nice, is if people are causing a worry in society for the police and ambulance, they do have to put them in jail. Is that, like with my sister, she kind of had to be kept for a while, and they were even able to administer her medication that she's on. So she was on like antidepressants and strong anti-anxieties like diazepam, and because they knew that she was on that and it was sort of quite clear on the system that she was suffering, they were also able to administer her medication so that she wasn't not receiving what she actually needed to receive by having to be detained by the police for a given period. So I think lots of people are fearful of the police, but if in my own experience, and I've dealt with the police a few times in the UK, is that they are absolutely incredibly kind, got loads of empathy, and just really are well trained to deal with all of these things that happen with people. So I don't know if it maybe just helps kind of like reiterating that they're there for support. They're not there to get you in trouble. Sorry, that was quite a long spiel there.
Oh, really helpful. I think it's quite frightening to phone 999 when you know somebody's experiencing a mental health problem.
Yeah.
You can't contain it within the organisation. And the experience, thank you so much for sharing that. It's always so, you didn't take too long, and it was brilliant to hear, and very reassuring. And I think the experience of that person will of course be different from the onlookers to the situation. And I think it's turning up when you're not able to maybe get a perception of reality that is stable for you at that point, it's really frightening. So it's really good to know that your experiences have been so positive around that.
Yeah.
It makes me feel less I've called an ambulance for someone suffering a mental health problem, and I've also met someone at hospital. It's very unlikely that person will go to a police station. Be most likely taken to accident emergency. They'll be assigned a mental health nurse to stay with them, and to keep an eye on them. If your policy allows, and if you can, you may also want to stay. It may be beyond the scope of your role. There's no requirement for you to do that. And they'll be assessed by a psychiatrist, and a decision will be made what treatment they need.
Yeah.
Done your job. You've done your job. You've made sure that person, it's out of your hands then, and it's with a suitably qualified professional. But you were the catalyst. This is the thing that I find really moving. You were the catalyst to make sure that person got what they needed. And without you, we don't know what would have happened. Go ahead, Nikita. Thank you very much, Stacey. Great question. Great response to the question. Thank you.
Yeah, just kind of following on from that, from what you've just said about, the possibility of you going with them. At what point, who is it that makes the phone call to either a family member to say that they've gone? So if they're there with you at work, and you have to make the decision that you call the services and they take them, whose responsibility is it to then inform a family member that they're no longer at work and that they have gone? Is that down to you as kind of like the employer, or is that up to the emergency services when they've taken them?
I'm so sorry not to give you a direct answer, but it would be whatever your policy would say.
Okay.
That's why you need a really, really good policy within your organisation. It would be, for me, just because this is kind of some of the stuff I train as well, it would be aligned with the physical, the confidentiality and the emergency contact around whatever the policy, the states around emergency contacts. Most HR departments would have, even if it's not a department, a new starter would fill in a form with an emergency contact or next of kin for that reason. So when I fill that form in, I expect if something happens to me, somebody should be called. But I would get some really good advice on that. I would make that watertight, actually, around particularly because it's a mental. Why say particularly because it's a mental health problem? Yeah, I would get a really good policy in place and then follow it. I would go on the ACAS website. They've got some brilliant resources, and take some guidance from them. Yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you. I mean, for me, it's more that I work alone, so I'm self-employed, and it's more mum's mental health that I would be. That's who I work with is mums and their children. So it's me kind of on my own. I don't have that other extra bit. So,
would you be commissioned for your work? Would somebody pay you for it?
For what? Sorry, for
who would commission you to do that? Provide that service?
So it's part of my service for mums at the moment that I'm building and putting together, is that it's all around support for them and their baby. So I run baby and toddler classes. I'm a breastfeeding peer supporter. I've got lots of other qualifications for me to be able to support mums, and this was just something that I wanted to be able to be that first point of call should a mum need it. So they kind of get all of these services kind of within what they pay me for the classes and things that I run.
Okay.
So yeah,
so if they're paying you, then you would need your own person in that, for sure.
Yeah.
Have a look at the ACAS website. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the richness of the information on it.
Okay.
Yes, Amy, go ahead. Thank you.
If Ben had been more receptive to some of the things you were saying, would you have asked for his consent to call 999? Or
if he'd been more receptive, I would have taken him to A&E.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have. I've done that once before with someone who had had chronic psychosis, and I managed. It was very similar, actually. He wouldn't let me leave the building because I would be in severe danger, but he would allow me to meet him at the bus stop outside St Thomas's. It's kind of parallel. I don't know if you know it. It's parallel to the Thames. It's kind of quite near to the South Bank, and we met. I was able to kind of coax him based on the relationship we had, and then the minute the health nurse joined us in casualty, my anxiety levels kind of just massively reduced. I thought, okay, he's handed over now. He's handed over, and I stayed with him until he was assessed by the psychiatrist, and I was very worried because he was so plausible that they wouldn't see how ill he was. They immediately put him on a section. They detained him under the Mental Health Act for full assessment, which was such a relief. And he was very compliant, actually. He kind of had a sense. It was really interesting. It was almost like the fight was over. I'm kind of safe for this particular young man. He was amazing. And he's very well now. But yeah, if Ben had been more receptive, I would have got another colleague. I don't think I would have dealt with him on my own. I would have probably got another colleague, and we would have got in a cab and gone to a hospital. And I would have got one of my colleagues to phone ahead to the department just to explain that we were coming.
I know we don't have much time left, but I just wanted to quickly say, how would you prepare after you'd called 999? When you go back to Ben, how would you let him know that had happened, that you had done that, and that's what was happening?
Good question. I don't know. It would depend on how he seemed, like had he got worse. So I would be going through the care procedure again, action plan again, to reassess, because I've been away and then I've come back. I try not to go very far as well. And if there was another first aider for mental health, I would call upon them to sit with him. I would probably very gently say, you know, Ben, I am worried about you, and you know it's my job, my role to make sure that you're okay. We're just going to wait. And then what I would probably do is get a colleague to tell me and to gatekeep. And maybe if the police came with the ambulance, maybe have a conversation with them about the situation, do a bit of a triage with them, because they don't know what they're into either. It must be quite daunting for any person to arrive at any situation where you're an emergency service worker. You never know what you're going to get, but I have a trust that they know what they're doing, because that's what I have to trust. So yeah, maybe just give them a scenario and just work out a very quick plan, and then maybe at the very last minute say, then this is what's happening. But for me, it feels, if it's possible, important, because I've been holding that situation, to explain something, even if it's very short, just to say, then I'm worried about you, and we had that conversation, and I've called some help, and what we have to do is we have to, you know, listen to what they have to say, and it's really important we do what they suggest. Okay, it's really important.
I think what's going back to what Stacey said as well, it's very dramatic, and it's for one of us to dial 999. But when the emergency turn up, they're very calm. They do this day in, day out. You know, they're not going to come screeching up with sirens wailing. You're going to speak to them before they see whoever's in distress. And they're very, very good at what they do. They're very good. They keep very calm. They're very good at keeping the situation calm.
Yeah. Ben was I think you told he was a doorman for a lot of years, so he's really used to dealing with the police.
Going back to what Stacey said,
And
the police
emergency.
are amazing. They really are. I've dealt with the police so many times, dealing with people around drug and alcohol misuse. They're just they're really good.
What about the ambulance?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was mostly police that I've dealt with, but all the emergency services are they're spot on, really on point.
Thank you, thanks so much. There'll be lots of variables to this as well, like how you communicate what's going on to when you dial 999. If you say someone's not, if you are genuinely concerned, you tell them that I'm really concerned that this person could attempt to kill themselves, and we need someone. How you then deal with him may not be in such a direct way, because then you calm down, slow it down. That they need to be really clear about what's happening and what you're worried about, because the longer that, and they will prioritize anyway. It's not your responsibility to prioritize when they send an ambulance, but you have to hold this situation until they arrive. So it's better, the sooner the better. And find an ally in your organisation. Again, check the policy. If you're doing it on behalf of an organisation, who is your ally? Who are the people? And there needs to be probably, I would say, more than one if it's a bigger organisation. Who can, if you're all going on annual leave, you're going to be on your own, and that is difficult. It's very likely this will never happen, but it's also likely that it might. So, yeah. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any final something they might want to say or ask about anything for Monday? Any reflection, anything at all? Katie? Oh, can't hear you, Katie. Use to mute.
Sorry, hang on.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we should prepare or read ahead of Monday?
Okay, good question. I would say familiarise yourself with the action plan. So everything we've covered today, if you felt you had more time, so you've got 5 weeks, and if you can't do this is absolutely fine. If you wanted to familiarise yourself with how you would recognise the different mental health conditions, if you just want to read through, if you don't have loads of time to go through the whole of the learning, maybe just have a look through the PowerPoint slides that you've got as part of your learning resources, just to see how would you spot someone who is experiencing psychosis. If someone was depressed, what might they appear to you to behave and sound like? Someone who is very anxious or having some sort of panic attack, what should you do if someone is suicidal? That's all contained. Give yourself a bit of a break because it's quite heavy. It can feel that way, immersing yourself in lots of mental illness over the weekend. But yeah, take it just from an observational perspective. How would someone seem if they were experiencing those conditions? Yeah, that's what, if you want to do anything. And again, if you don't want to, that's fine. That's totally fine. Or if you can't, that's fine. We've all worked so hard today. It's been, it's kind of quite heavy going stuff. Make sure you do something nice for yourself now.
I've got one more question, sorry, to hold the time. Aside from the PowerPoint slides, there's the handbook, right? I've been sent a PDF because the mail here is disastrous, so it hasn't arrived. I'm just wondering, in terms of the assessment, do we need to be familiar with all the content from that handbook, or is it really the slides that are the most important?
Yeah, good question. It's the learning resources. The book is kind of a reference point. It is some additional information. I hope the book will get to you. I'm sure it will. I know it's definitely been sent. Yeah, it's the learning resources that are the most important thing. Everything you need is in there. And you have a copy. You can make reference to the book as well. So yeah. But it's the learning, it's everything really. The resource, the learning, the First Aid for Mental Health manual will be useful to you post-qualification as much as it is now, and it's just a good reference for you to have a look at, consolidate your learning with. Okay, so we've got 2 minutes. I'd like to thank you very much. You're a lovely group, and I'm very moved by the level of thought and care that you're giving to your future role as first aiders for mental health. It really is about preserving life and minimizing the distress of a person. And it's a really important role. It will be widespread very soon, and you're really still, even though it's been around a while, you're still one of the very few people being trained in this. And I think that it will stand you in such good stead in whatever you're doing now and whatever you're doing going forward. And because you get a qualification in this, it kind of legitimizes your commitment to the role as well. So I just wanted to say thank you. You've been great, a great group, and have a nice weekend. If anyone wants to hang around just for about 5 minutes afterwards, I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm going to be sending everyone an email, but there's something that's been coming up out of the courses quite recently. So I'm going to say goodbye and see you on Monday, and we're going to stop recording. If anyone wants, in just about a minute, I can't say the old book could email. Yeah, I'm going to email you the information, don't worry. I'm going to send everything out to you.